What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be talking about my top 10 best Nintendo franchises. This is a video that you guys have wanted me to do for quite some time, so I'm super excited to get it to you guys. But before we get into it, make sure you guys hit that like button, drop a comment on what your favorite Nintendo franchise is, and of course, subscribe if you're someone new to get all of our videos. Now, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get right into it. And we're starting off with Kid Icarus, and the key game in this franchise for me is Kid Icarus Uprising and how it cracked into my top 10. So there's just so many Nintendo franchises and so many different good games over the years, but Kid Icarus Uprising really resurrected the franchise because it was dormant for quite some time. There's only an NES game, we have a Game Boy game, and then we have a Nintendo 3DS game, and that is it. But that was good enough for me for my top 10. Kid Icarus Uprising is a very unique and technically advanced Nintendo 3DS game. It had 3-on-3 online multiplayer that worked extremely well. It had a complete and thorough weapon crafting system in the game. It had a unique slider for difficulty to make it easier or harder based on what you want to play it on. The polish of Super Smash Bros. Kind of came through with Kid Icarus Uprising, and it has a full in-depth story complete with voice acting, 3D graphics, and tons of action. The game is phenomenal on the Nintendo 3DS. The only problem with it is the controls. That's just about it. But once you get past that, it's an amazing game. But even going back to the NES and also the Game Boy games, those were phenomenal for their time and very good and fun. Challenging, but also very good. But the key game for me is Kid Icarus Uprising is what made it get into my top 10. Coming in at number 9, we have Donkey Kong DK. Let's go. Donkey Kong's an old school franchise, and over the years, I've played so many Donkey Kong games. Sometimes I mix up from one game to another game, but the cool thing about Donkey Kong is that it came back to its roots. I love what Donkey Kong always does with the controls. That was one thing that Donkey Kong always got right. The controls were smooth, the games were difficult, and there was tons of levels and secrets and things to get. It was always a cool adventure when you played Donkey Kong. There was always little nooks and crannies to explore and different things to do with great level design for the most part. Now, I'm not necessarily counting like the 3D Donkey Kong games and Donkey Konga, some of the other stuff. Some of those are good games, and I know some of you guys like those, but for me, it was all about the 2D Donkey Kong games. The original Donkey Kong trilogy. I love Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Donkey Kong Country Returns. They were all phenomenal games, and I can't wait to see what they do next. But Donkey Kong makes it to number 9 on my list just because it's awesome retro style platforming with that difficulty edge, so it's kind of hard to go wrong with that. Coming in at number 8 is Splatoon, the franchise, and this one barely qualified because I actually had my own internal rule that there needs to be at least 2 games in the franchise in order to qualify, and Splatoon just snuck in because there's only Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2, and if you want to count the Octo expansion, but it's really just an expansion pass for Splatoon 2, so I kind of count it as just that. So there isn't a lot of Splatoon games, but that's how big of an impression it left on me. Let's just talk about all the amazing things of Splatoon. One, it has a very unique concept. You ink up the different turf. You can go in there as a squid, then pop out and shoot people. And some of the keys of the game aren't just getting kills. It's about working with your teammates. It's about inking turf and having the most by the end of it. It almost takes like the really fun activity of paintball and just completely makes it its own thing, which I loved paintball back in the day. I used to play a lot whenever I could. So I thought that Splatoon 2 just has such a unique and innovative concept, well, Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2, and they really did a great job bringing over from 1 to 2 all the different additions that they added to the game. I mean, the game is complete. You have a horde mode, essentially, that's in the game. You have a full single player mode that's really good. You have multiple multiplayer modes as well, with private battles, also with ranked battles. You have a vast array of different weapons to use, different styles and abilities. You can customize everything. The game is just absolutely loaded, and it was supported for quite some time. And they even kind of came back to it a little bit with some more Splatfest and everything. It was a very unique take for Nintendo, but it was also a very good and innovative take for Nintendo as well, because Splatoon did so many things that you never saw in any other third-person shooters out there. So I had to give Splatoon 2 and the Splatoon franchise, with the key game being Splatoon 2 for me, which what I like the most, I had to get it in on number 8 in my list. Number 7, the Metroid franchise. So to be honest, guys, I haven't really ever played a bad Metroid game, with the exception, the only one where I didn't like that much was probably Metroid Prime Federation Force. Like, that's the only game. Outside of that game, this franchise is pretty much solid. It's like the most solid out of probably any on this list in terms of games, to where there's been like at least maybe 7 or 8 games, because there's been quite a number of Metroid games, but pretty much everything that I've played has been phenomenal. The Metroid franchise, whether you're playing the 2D or the 3D, is amazing, but the key game for me is Super Metroid. That's my key game. That's the game that I think that really made me love the franchise even more so than anything. And it's just everything that Super Metroid and the franchise does. The upgrading. I love being able to get the double jump boots, or getting high speed boots, or getting the screw attack, different types of weapons. You have like an ice beam, and you have different types of like the wave beam. There's just so many different things that you can get, customize, go through. You have to kind of find back where you need to get to, collecting different missile tanks, super missiles, all of that. The Metroid franchise is one of those that's just copied so much, but it's executed so well when Nintendo does it. I mean, some of the best games that I've played are stuff like Super Metroid, and of course Metroid Fusion. You also have Metroid Zero Mission. These games are phenomenal. And then they were even able to take that formula and what they did, bring it over to 3D flawlessly. Metroid Prime was a revolution for me. Heck, I think I might have to have 2 key games in this one here, with Super Metroid and Metroid Prime, because those 2 games proved to me that the formula of what Metroid does is just phenomenal, and you can make it work as long as you have great level design and cool upgrades. You can make that work with anything, and that's why the game is copied so much and everything. So I love those 2 games. I love what Metroid does, and that's good enough to make it to number 7 on my list. Number 6, Pokemon. The Pokemon franchise has been something that I have loved for a very long time, ever since it came out here in the US. And at one point, it was my favorite Nintendo franchise, but then other stuff kind of happened. But Pokemon, what else is there to say? The games are packed full of content. There's always tons of Pokemon to collect, has great RPG mechanics. I love the use of elements in the game. That's phenomenal. Having weaknesses and resistances, having all the different types of strategies that you can employ, the multiplayer, the tagline, gotta catch them all. Also just battling. It was always just fun to kind of go and battle against your rivals. It really put a fire in me when it comes to competitive games. Pokemon was one of the first games outside of Street Fighter that did that for me. But the difference with this one is that it was an RPG. So it was kind of like a unique thing that I'd never done before when I played it, because I never played an RPG competitive game against your friends. And Pokemon was the first game that kind of put that out there. It was just fighting games for the most part, or sports games or racing games or something like that. So Pokemon was a unique title for me, and that's what makes it to number 6 on the list here. Getting into the top 5, we've got Xenoblade Chronicles. The Xenoblade Chronicles franchise is just phenomenal. Every single game, I love them. Xenoblade Chronicles, the original, the definitive edition that came out on the Nintendo Switch. You also have Xenoblade Chronicles X, is amazing, such a unique open world game that lets you kind of just go anywhere that you want. Then you have Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which is a phenomenal game, which added in some elements of Pokemon. I love the elements with fire and all of that, and doing all the different blade combos. Really cool game. And then of course you got Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torn of the Golden Country, which perfected what they did in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, simplified it and made it easier to play, but at the same time added some depth with the Vanguard switching system and being able to use both of your characters, which was just a great addition. Xenoblade Chronicles is one of those games to where I can just sit down, and if I have a full day, nothing to do, I mean, I can just play it all day. That's what pretty much happened when it came out. I just play it all day. Back when the original Xenoblade Chronicles came out, all the way through to Torn of the Golden Country, the games are amazing. A little bit rough around some of the edges, but the content and what they do in the games, the stories in the games, the characters, more than make up for it. Coming in at number 4, which might be a shock to some of you guys, and that is Super Mario. Yes, the Super Mario franchise. And to be honest here, guys, without Mario, I don't think we'd even be able to do any of this, right? For me, Mario was that game that made me say, I love video games. I'd already played stuff like Pac-Man, and there was like Pong, and there was all sorts of games, right? Arcade stuff, which was great back in the day. I loved those games. I thought they were really cool. But when you had the experience at home, a game like Mario, at the time it was an action platforming game where you got upgrades and power-ups and you kept them as long as you stayed alive. It didn't get hit. It was just an amazing experience. And then the key game for me, at least, the key game in all this, Mario Bros. 3. When Mario 3 came out, that's when I knew that gaming was going to be eternal. That gaming was forever, because they took everything that I thought that I loved and I knew about Mario and said, we can make this like 17 to 20 times better than what we did. I mean, you were able to fly. Flying was awesome. You were able to turn into a statue. You were able to do all sorts of crazy stuff. Mario Bros. 3 just told me so much about gaming and so much about great levels and areas and adventures. Mario 3 was just amazing, but even then it got like better. It even got better when it went to like 3D Mario 64, and then also Mario Galaxy, Mario Sunshine. They tried so many new different things. Mario has just been phenomenal, and over the course of everything, to me, a key 3D game would be Super Mario Galaxy 2. The key 2D game would be Super Mario Bros. 3, and of course the original Super Mario Bros. So to me, it well deserves that number 4, and honestly could have been higher. Number 3, The Legend of Zelda. And the key game, to be honest, which bumped it all the way up this high, is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And of course, as a side one, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. So to me, the Legend of Zelda series has been a series that I've had a little bit of a love-hate relationship with. I love games like Wind Waker. I love the original Legend of Zelda. I love Link to the Past. But then there's some games like Majora's Mask and some of the other games like Skyward Sword and some other titles that I'm not necessarily as fond of when it comes to like Link's Awakening and stuff like that. But over the course of the years, The Legend of Zelda has always been the gold standard when it comes to adventure, action, RPG, all sorts of stuff that you want to say Legend of Zelda is. But Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was the game that just made me say, Legend of Zelda is here. Like, for me, this is what I want. I mean, Twilight Princess was phenomenal, and I love that game. Wind Waker was phenomenal. Love that game. But Breath of the Wild just showed me that Nintendo still has tricks up their sleeves. Nintendo can still make a game that feels old school, but then modern at the same time, and even say, hey, you thought this was going to be good? We'll even make it 10 times better than what you expected, because that's what I expected going to Breath of the Wild. I was like, this game's going to be really good. I'm going to like this game. But how good is it going to be? They're like, oh, you're going to see how good it's going to be. I mean, there's survival elements in the game. You can go anywhere, do anything. And to me, this is the first game that I've played in terms of an open world game to where it was a true open world game. As in, you use the open world in the game anywhere, anytime, and it's an integral part in the gameplay department. It's not just the open world just to be an open world, but you actually have to use the open world to fight enemies, to get to certain places, to survive. To me, it was just a pure spark of innovation and brilliance that I'll never forget, and I wish I can forget it so I can play it again and experience it for the first time again. But we do have The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 coming up, which I think is even going to take things to the next level. I mean, everyone's saying that, okay, well, we already expect this. I think Nintendo's even going to take it further. But to me, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, number 3 on the list. Number 2, the Fire Emblem series. Fire Emblem to me has a very special place in my heart. I started playing them back in the day before I even knew what was going on, because Nintendo didn't localize the games. And then as they got localized, I started understanding that, wait a minute, Fire Emblem is amazing. I played the one on the GBA. I thought that was pretty good. I was like, okay, this is okay, but it's not necessarily my favorite or anything. And then the game that really turned it to me, the key game in the franchise for me, was Fire Emblem Awakening. That's when I said, this is here to stay. Fire Emblem is here to stay. This is phenomenal. The story, the set pieces, the combat, the strategy, the list goes on what makes Fire Emblem great. Heck, it looked horrible on the Nintendo 3DS compared to some of the other games like Kingdom Hearts or other RPGs out there, but it still played amazing. It saved the franchise, and it made me love strategy RPGs, because before then, I wasn't huge on strategy RPGs. I'd played some of the Fire Emblem games. I played Path of Radiance. I played Radiant Dawn. I played them, but they didn't really stick to me like Awakening did. That was the game that really got me into Fire Emblem more so than anything. And then it just snowballed with Fire Emblem Fates and also Fire Emblem Three Houses, and now it's one of my favorite franchises. right there at number 2. And number 1, the Super Smash Brothers franchise. You guys know I'm a Smash head, I'm a Smash fan, and Smash Brothers has just been phenomenal. Ever since it released back on the N64, I've been hooked. Anytime a Smash Brothers game comes out, that's always the game that I'm most hyped and excited to play, because it's Smash Brothers, because it's unique, because you get to play as a bunch of Nintendo characters, and now also third-party characters. You get to beat the crap out of each other, and they've even added more modes, more characters, more stages, more music. There's DLC now. It's the biggest and baddest game in like every single aspect when it comes to a fighting game. Like, it has the most characters for a crossover, has the most stages, has the most music, has the most everything. So for me, I could not deny Super Smash Brothers as the top spot. It's just that good. Heck, you can fight with Cloud and Sephiroth versus Mega Man and Pac-Man. You can use Sonic and Snake. You can use just all these different types of characters. It's just third party, it's first party, it's insane. Smash Brothers is truly unique. There's no other game on the market like it. It's just jam-packed full of content, and I just couldn't leave it off the top spot. I was thinking about Fire Emblem or Xenoblade or Mario, but Super Smash Brothers, the quality of the game from each release, and the fact that it's been pretty much the only game that I know of that has steadily increased in sales every single time that it's released. Super Smash Bros. It just gets better and better and better. I mean, there's probably other franchises that have done that, but Smash Bros. Is truly incredible. The best-selling fighting game of all time with over 20 million units sold, and it's well-deserved. The game is amazing, and Sakurai is goated when it comes to fighting games, in my opinion. So those are my top 10 Nintendo franchises. We do have a brand new community poll that's up right now on the channel. You can check it out, link in the description below, where you guys can vote on what your favorite Nintendo franchises are. I'll be commenting and interacting with you guys on there as well. So please make sure you check it out there and vote on what your favorite Nintendo franchises are. And of course, list your top 10. You can put it here in the comment section. Vote on the community page. I really would appreciate you guys' support on that. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Check out the links in the description. We've got Twitter. Go and give us a follow on there. Stay up to date on all the latest gaming news and information. Also, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share this video if you can. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.